Welcome to the Empowered Money Girl, where we break down the barriers to financial confidence, celebrate women's wins, and reveal the secrets to living boldly and well. I'm your host, Josette Mandela. So let me ask you, have you ever felt lost when it comes to protecting your business, your family, or your future from unexpected risks? My guest today knows exactly how to guide you through that. She's the CEO of Infinity Insurance Partners with over 2 decades in risk management and insurance, known for her client-first approach and deep expertise in industries from construction to technology. With a background at AON, Hub International, and Liberty Mutual, she's helped countless business owners secure coverage, control costs, and gain peace of mind. If you're ready to feel informed, empowered, and protected, you will love this episode. Please welcome the insightful, dedicated, and client-focused Jessica Loomis.
Hi, how are you?
Great. So can you take us back to the beginning? What was your path to where you are today?
Well, it's an interesting story. Obviously, no one ever wants or thinks they're going to be in insurance. There's very few that actually get a degree in insurance. I was working in a call center in actually Tempe, Arizona, with credit card company, and one of my friends said, "Hey, I get $1,000 if you get hired at Liberty Mutual, and I'll split it with you." And at 20 years old, $500 is a lot of money. And so I interviewed for that position, selling home and auto insurance for Liberty Mutual, and it was the best decision I ever made. Things happen for a reason. And I got that job and it started my career. And Liberty Mutual paid for my degree, my bachelor's degree. They supported me through the whole process. And then I actually ended up getting promoted as soon as I got my bachelor's degree with their commercial lines division. And so then that's when I started my journey in the commercial insurance uh, area. And honestly, commercial insurance is really fun because you get to learn about different types of organizations, how they run, how they function. And then they moved me to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I continued my career with Liberty Mutual. And and probably about a year and a half later, Liberty Mutual sold their book of business to Hub International. And I actually had already left Liberty about, I don't know, 3 months before that happened. And so I was actually able to keep my book of business that I had with Liberty Mutual because they sold to Hub. So that was exciting. And got to learn about being a broker. Liberty Mutual, I was selling one product, and then now I have 50 products plus to sell, which was exciting because I had more options for my clients. And I did that for 5 years. And then I went to Aon and I was with Aon for about 9 months. And that Aon is a very, very corporate type company. And Hub was a little more family oriented, a little more relationship driven. And I realized about 9 months in, this was not what I was looking to do. I really wanted something where I felt like I had a little more autonomy. And so I left after 9 months, and that's when I started my business.
Well, that's a cool path. And so you had decided to go with your own business, but you even came with a block of business that you had acquired, if you will, from Liberty Mutual. So,
Well, that's when I was with Hub, yes. But then when I left Hub, they have what's called a non-compete, right? So
oh,
I started over, if you think about it, when I left Liberty, not knowing that Hub was going to get that book, right? I literally started over when I went from Liberty to Hub. I then
okay.
started over again when I went from Hub to Aon because there's always that non-compete. You're not allowed to take your business.
Ah,
Um, And then when I left Aon, again, non-compete, so starting over again. So yeah, no, I've started over several times, and I always with that leap of faith that I can make it happen. Um, so
That's amazing having to keep restarting. But once you made that leap into working for yourself, it sounds like you've decided that that's not something you never want to go back to that corporate world again. You
yeah, I mean, now I've owned my business 11 years. And I mean, obviously there's obstacles with that too. It's hard work. I do see, I'm in a lot of like Facebook groups with women and just entrepreneurs in general. And after 3 months, they're like, oh, well, I haven't gotten any business. And whether no matter what you're selling or what you're doing, it's a grind, especially the first few years. You're having to build your product and get your social media going and making sure you're attending networking events. And it can be the first few years, it's 70 to 80 hours a week sometimes, depending on whether you have support or not. But that being said, the rewards once you've become somewhat established is really nice to be able to make your own decisions. And if I need to go pick up my daughter from school, or attend something for my daughter, or do I do have some freedom now, which is nice.
and speaking about teams and having support, obviously when you were in the corporate world, you had a whole lot of people behind you. And then
Yes.
once you started your own business, how did you figure out what a team looks like and decide I I can't do it on my own, if you will. I need
Sure.
support.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for the first, I would say year, I did it all myself, and that's a lot. And then after that first year, it was one of those moments where it was like, okay, I can't, if I want to write more new business, I need to have someone supporting me, and helping me service the accounts, because I was at a point where I was sitting at my desk, and that's not where I should be, right? I need to be out networking, building my business. And so it was probably about a year in, looking at the budget, and it was kind of one of those things. I can't exactly afford it yet, but I can't afford not to do it. So again, it was one of those pivotal moments where it's like, okay, I'm close to being able to afford it completely, but I don't think I can not afford to not do it, because if I don't, then I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to be sitting at my desk, and that's not where I can be. So, um, and then we ended up doubling our revenue that year because I was able to have that support system. And then after that, at the 2 year mark, I had my account manager that had been working with me, and she's like, okay, this is getting to be a lot. And so we had to make the decision to then hire someone part-time. And so we went through this service to hire someone part-time, and it worked out great. And then we actually ended up hiring her full-time, and she's actually still with me as an employee, in fact. And so she's been with me the longest. And then now we're up to about 8 employees here in the US, and then we have about 8 employees in the Philippines.
Oh wow, that's a pretty big team.
It is.
But then it's 11 years as well, and I
Yeah,
imagine in that time you've got a much larger block of business than
than when
you
I
had at
started.
any of your earlier points in your career.
Exactly.
So you were saying some of the things that you do is network and so in person, online, both.
Yeah, so I do a lot of networking. I go to specific industry networking events based on the types of focuses, right? So manufacturing, landscaping, Mechanical Trade Contractors Association of Arizona, just several associations that we feel are good relationships for us. And so we build on those relationships. You've got to make sure that you're present all the time, because if you just go to one and then not show up for the next 10, no one's going to know who you are, and you've just spent a ton of money on your membership, and it's just going to waste. So definitely it's all about showing up. We do a lot of social media marketing, specifically on LinkedIn, especially because we're a B2B organization. So we're constantly posting on LinkedIn, on the business and on my personal LinkedIn, in regard to, just things that are going on in the industry, and also reaching out through LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's a big piece of what we do. And I do have a team now, though, that also, a sales team, or I'm building a sales team. It's been a process. I think that's been the hardest piece of my business, to find good, solid salespeople. And so I have literally a sales training program, and I meet with them weekly on, how many calls they need to make. One of the biggest things I would say from a sales perspective that helped me when I was first starting out, and the other two times that I started out, is I actually would stop by businesses. Email half the time does not work anymore. No one returns phone calls. We're so inundated, that dropping by some donuts, or something that like they don't see every day, dropping off some breakfast burritos for their team at 6 a.m., especially if they're like a landscaping company.
Oh,
um, that goes a long way. And so, then you become top of mind. And so that's something that I encourage my whole sales team to do. If you're not out there stopping by businesses, you're not doing your job. Networking as well, being in person, building those relationships. I'm not a big salesy person, so I'm not sitting there saying, "Oh, let me quote your insurance." I'm building relationships with these people, and learning about what they need in their business. And so when they do need me, they're going to reach out. It's not the other way around.
oh, I love that. That you go out, basically you're in service to them and say, hey, here's some donuts or a breakfast burrito or whatever. And oh, by the way, I also do insurance. So if you have a need, feel free
Hmm.
to give me a call. But
Exactly.
in the
Yep.
meantime, enjoy breakfast.
Yes, exactly.
So, and to me, insurance is like essentially covering me for those bad times in my life. But uh, there's also the component of it that kind of helps you with financial independence. Because if you forget to do it and then something bad happens, now you're not covered. Now you can't. Now you've got to figure out how to cover those expenses.
It's true. Yes. I mean, from life insurance to auto insurance to home insurance, renter's insurance. What's really interesting is that, as an insurance broker, and at the time, an insurance agent selling for Liberty Mutual, um, I didn't have renter's insurance. And I actually had a fire at my apartment complex. And that was devastating, right? I mean, and obviously, I think I'd only been in the business maybe a year, but it was something like it didn't even occur to me to get, and I don't know why. I mean, I was, 20 years old, so that might have been part of it, just not being very responsible, but being in that situation where I had to depend, even though it was the apartment complex's fault, okay, they were welding something downstairs, below near the water faucet, and it literally they were welding, and it set the interior of the like the drywall on fire, and it we actually had to move out of the that apartment. They had to move us to a new one, and it took them like 6 months to repair it. So we stayed somewhere else. But everything was smoke damaged.
Mhm.
Our furniture was damaged. They had to basically take everything, and we were fighting with them the whole time. If I had had renter's insurance, it would have gone a lot more smoothly. They would have helped negotiate things for me. And yeah, we just wouldn't have been put out as much as we were. So that's a situation where if I had been more proactive buying a renter's insurance policy, it would have been ideal. Now I'm obviously hyper focused and I make sure that we have all the proper insurance, but life insurance is a big one. It actually, when you're younger, it's not as expensive and it can last till you're 85, 90, and it can grow with you. So, things like that, where, if you get in and you talk with like a financial advisor, they can help you kind of figure out what the best route is for you. Setting up an IRA, I set up one for my daughter. And I don't fund that much into it, but just a little bit every month is huge, right? Because by the time she's graduated from high school, she'll have some money like to, maybe help her with the apartment or pay for college or whatever the case may be. And it's just a great way to look at things.
Yeah, and you talk about the person in the industry not taking advantage of the things in the industry, and I I had that myself. I mean, in my 20s, I believed a man was a plan, and so I didn't really take advantage of any of the things in the financial industry that I was working in. And then when I found out that he was even worse managing money than I was, and we ended up divorced and bankrupt, I was kicking myself for not taking advantage of those things. So yeah, I fully understand that. Realizing after the horse is out of the barn that, oops, I should have closed that door before.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and look at all these cool things I had access to. Oops.
Right. Absolutely.
So, it sounds like you have a pretty good relationship with your money. How has that evolved over time?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I do save, but probably not as good as I should. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that because I reinvest into my business.
Mhm.
I pay myself less in order to grow my business. And so, could I be saving more? Absolutely. But I do have three life insurance policies that are universal life. So they are convertible and they're an investment arm. I do put money into an IRA every month. And I have my 401k and I put in at least 10% into my 401k every month. But I do try to often, like, I don't know, in the entrepreneur in me, right, is I reinvest into my business. I could definitely be paying myself a lot more, but I try to like just look at it as like that's my investment, if that makes sense. Because insurance agencies specifically, if you do it right, your payout at the end is significant if you do it right. So that, I mean, just being fully transparent, yes, do I save here and there, but could I do better? Yes.
But you're also paying attention to that, and you're not just kind of winging it, if you will.
No, absolutely not. I do try to, like I mentioned, I do try to make sure that I'm saving here and there, like and even in your home, right? Right now to me, it's not the time to buy. Maybe some real estate agents would say it is, but so I'm reinvesting in my current home. just doing updates and things like that, where I feel like it is a good time to buy, then I'm ready to rent this out or do whatever I'm ready to do. Um, and those are the types of things that I think about.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't feel like with the interest rates where they are right now that now is a good time to buy. I really feel like the it's going to take a little while for the last 4 years to kind of work itself out and us to get the economy back where uh, it is growing and everything, but it's not quite where I feel comfortable that now's a great time to buy because with interest rates being what they are, you're paying a lot more for borrowing that money than if you just wait a little longer.
Well, I also see that the price of homes is going down quite a bit,
Mm,
so I've been keeping an eye on that as well.
yep, there you go. So, what advice would you have for a woman who's looking to start building her financial independence, especially if she's relied on her partner or job for the stability?
So if they have a regular corporate job, I would definitely say putting money into a 401k. That's really big. Making sure that you have a life insurance policy and maybe making sure it's a convertible one where you can turn it into a universal life policy and fund that on a regular basis too. But be careful with those because sometimes, if you get with the wrong wealth management person, they're gonna say that that's like your sole solution, right? And it's not. So you need to find like a balance. But I definitely encourage life insurance with the universal um, life portion because then you can put some money towards it every month and it does end up becoming a tool when you retire. Um, Getting an IRA, again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount that you're investing, but getting an IRA where you're putting 25, $50 a month even in the IRA is also a good avenue. And and if you're young enough, being aggressive with your 401k. I actually am very aggressive with my 401k. And the reason for that is because that's not what I'm betting on. And so it's actually really helped me being aggressive in my 401k. Um, and but it is definitely a huge piece. And if you can put 10%, and especially if your company's matching, at least up to, usually they'll match up to 6%, 6.5%. If you're matching up to, I think it's usually 3 or 3.5. So definitely encourage that. Um, and just, and then saving, you know, I encourage my daughter, she works for a company and I make her put 50% of her pay into the IRA, right? So any amount that you can save and keep it as a separate savings account and maybe even at a different bank to where, and you can also have usually your company will is willing, like if you work for a corporate company, you can actually have them just put that money into an account right away into the account. You're not managing it. You can actually have them put it in two separate accounts, your pay. So let's say you put 20% into a savings account.
So, Jessica, what advice would you have for women who want to start building financial independence, especially if they've relied on a partner or a job for stability?
So I think the biggest thing to make sure that you're doing is utilizing what's available to you through the company that you're working for. So a 401k, do they have life insurance opportunities? Taking advantage of that. If they don't, then obviously looking at alternatives for life insurance. And there is a savings opportunity through using universal life, but You do need to be careful with the wealth management people that you work with, because oftentimes they will say that that's like your sole solution and have you put all your savings into that. And that is not the way to do things. And there's IRA you want to look at. And also, you want to look at making sure that you have some kind of savings set aside for those situations that come up. Um, Usually you want to at least look at 20%. I know it's tough, especially if you're on a budget. And so kind of taking a look at what you have that you can kind of diversify into these options in order to make sure that you're saving appropriately. Because I get it. We're all on a budget. It can be difficult, but that's kind of what I would suggest if you can.
And all of that sounds perfect. Um, and it's similar for our business owners as well. They want to do pretty much the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. There's no, especially if you can save more. It's if you're a business owner, and then in your business too. One of the things that I noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs, they're not saving. So one of the things that we try to make sure we have is at least three payrolls in a savings account. You just never know what's going to happen. And so being able to make payroll is kind of a big deal, and people depend on that. And so that's one thing that we always try to make sure we have is at least three payrolls in a savings account.
I agree. That sounds like perfect planning because, like you
Hmm.
say, you never know what could happen with the income stream, and you want to make sure that you're prepared so that you're not suddenly saying to your employees, "Well, sorry, can't pay you this week." Yeah,
Right.
not good. So, do you believe that women should always have money of their own, and why or why not?
Ah, I know it's a trust thing, right? I can say that in my experience, I think that having a separate checking account and your partner having a separate checking account and then you having a checking account together, in my experience, is the best way. I think that, finances can kind of get in the way. And if you do have your own job and everything else, or your own career or even your own business, making sure that, kind of like in your business, you have an operating account, you've got a savings account, right? So if you have, you're both have your own checking account and then you pay your bills out of your operating account, which is your joint checking account.
Mhm.
Um, I just, in my personal experience, I've had, significant others go and spend money that we really didn't have. And I've had friends that they've had men steal from them. And so I just think that having those separate accounts, and not that, every man out there is horrible, because they're not, but I do think it helps from that aspect of, um, finances not necessarily getting in the way of your relationship, because now you have kind of like that agreed upon, okay, I'm going to pay this, you pay that. This is how much each of us is going to put into this checking account to pay our bills. And that's it. I that that's my feeling on it. Some people might disagree, but I just do think it's the better way to do things.
And I agree with that. Like you, I've seen too many instances where having all the money pooled uh, ends up in one, and it's not even necessarily the woman that gets taken advantage of. There's
Right.
situations on the other side as well. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I absolutely agree that um, and it's trust. And I feel like I I have things called money date nights that I talk to my clients about. And what that is that you both get together and decide who's paying what. So there are some things that you want money to do your own thing, and you agree that you can spend, X amount of dollars for your own stuff. This is what the pool of money is for our joint stuff, and then you let it go. Whether you agree with what they're spending their money on or not,
Right.
you kind of have to let that go
Hmm.
because you've agreed that X dollars are going to be spent on whatever they want. So
Right.
even
But,
if you don't like it.
maybe they don't agree with you wanting to get your nails done, but that's
Hmm.
what you want to get that's what you want to spend your money on. Or maybe they like to go and, I don't know, go to the fantasy football or whatever,
Right.
right? Like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe they want to go get their pedicure. Yeah, I don't,
Yep.
yeah. So,
So what's next for you? What ambitions are still driving you forward?
I actually started another company a year ago. It's a company that we support actually other insurance agencies and brokers, and we provide virtual assistance. We train people from other countries to do all of the back office support for other insurance agencies. There's a really big need, and so we're filling that need. It's really exciting. I keep looking at, okay, I get offers all the time, like, hey, do you want to sell your agency, that type of stuff. And I don't know what I want to do yet. There is a certain level of size I'd like to get my agency to. And so until I reach that, then I wouldn't even consider selling. And then the other piece is uh looking at something like exploring like an ESOP, right? Where my employees actually get ownership.
Hmm.
I don't know how many insurance brokers look at that. And so it's just something that maybe I might look at exploring is some kind of agency ownership for my employees as opposed to selling to one of the big PE firms. Um, and maybe that's something I need to start exploring now. I don't know. And maybe that's like in a year, that's something we start looking at just as we grow to see what our options are because right now all of these local insurance brokers are being gobbled up by these private equity firms, and
Oh,
there aren't a lot of privately owned insurance agencies anymore.
oh.
And so to be independent like that and be employee owned, maybe that would be one of the first.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And here in Florida, we actually have an employee-owned grocery store called Publix, and they're quite successful. So, like you say, I can't say that I've heard of any insurance companies doing that. So you could be the first. And but yeah, it as with anything unusual like that, starting your research sooner rather than later is probably the way to go so that you can figure out what the nuances and how that might look for your agency as you're going forward.
Exactly.
But good luck. That sounds like a really interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, I just see so many agencies sell and then the employees are just not in the best situation, and in I've considered selling in the past,
Hmm.
and usually either they just get rid of the employees completely because
Hmm.
they can absorb, or it's just different benefits, everything's different, the culture is different, and really the private equity firms are looking at their bottom line, right? Because the whole idea is they want to sell at some point too. So
Right. So if there's one message you could give to women listening today about owning their own independence, what would it be?
Um, uh, I would say that, there's always two sides of every coin, right? You can be super independent, and then it's tough to like rely on someone or things like that. So I would just say that just be true to yourself and make sure that you're listening to your gut and um and know that you probably are right in certain situations. If you feel like something's wrong, it probably is wrong. Um, and be open to possibilities. And I would say those are the things I would suggest.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Jessica Loomis for sharing her wisdom and energy with us. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the Empowered Money Girl with your friends. The more we spread these stories, the more women we can empower to live boldly, both financially and every part of life. Until next time, keep thriving, and remember, your journey to empowerment starts with you.